On the 10th year of our marriage, Charles Gavin cheated. He brought his mistress's 2 children to me and said they were pitiful, that they needed a father. But when our daughter, Riley, clung to him, begging him not to leave, he never wavered. I didn't argue. I divorced Charles and took Riley with me. Worried she might suffer in a new family, I never remarried. Years later, Riley found her own partner. My granddaughter was a joy, sweet and lovely. I spent my days caring for her, and life was simple, peaceful and full. On my 60th birthday, Riley and her husband told me they were busy with work. My granddaughter had a last-minute tutoring session. They promised to celebrate with me the next day. That night, as I scrolled through social media, I came across a local video. Inside a lavish private dining room at a hotel. My daughter, her husband and Charles stood together. Alongside them were the 2 children he once chose over us. 6 people gathered around a cake, singing, "Happy Birthday," to the woman he cheated with all those years ago. And then Riley turned to her and called her mom. My daughter, Riley, insisted that my 60th birthday had to be a grand celebration. I told her not to go overboard. She refused, saying she had seen everything I had done for her over the years. This was her way of showing her love. She would take care of everything. Her words warmed my heart. I was deeply touched. All these years I had raised her alone, watched her grow up, get married and have a child of her own. My son-in-law Jack was a good man, thoughtful and respectful, treating me like his own mother. My granddaughter Annie was the sweetest little thing, always calling me grandma in that soft, endearing voice. I was happy. The pain of Charles's betrayal had faded bit by bit over the years. So when Riley insisted on throwing a big celebration, I was truly moved. I even started looking forward to my birthday. When you get older, you crave warmth and noise, the laughter of children, the company of family. It gives life something to look forward to. So when the day finally arrived, I was thrilled. I got up early, dressed neatly, and took Annie to school. Riley and Jack ate the breakfast I had prepared on the table before heading to work. Riley promised they would finish up their morning tasks quickly and come home early to throw my birthday party. So I waited. I kept myself busy tidying up the house while keeping an eye on the clock. But as the agreed time came and went, Riley still hadn't come home. Worried something had happened, I was just about to call her when my phone rang. "Mom, something urgent came up at work." "Jack too. It's all so last minute, we just can't take time off. We might not be able to celebrate your birthday today." Guilt filled Riley's voice. I felt a pang of disappointment, but their careers mattered more. I forced myself to stay calm and reassured her, "It's okay. Work comes first. You two focus on your jobs. I'll go pick up Annie from school." "Oh right." Before I could finish, Riley suddenly interrupted me. "Mom, it's your birthday. You shouldn't be running around. One of my friends happens to be passing by the school this afternoon, so they'll pick Annie up and bring her to my office. Just stay home and rest, okay?" Thinking of how busy Riley was and how young Annie still was, I hesitated. "Maybe I should still go. You've got so much on your plate and that little one is such a handful. She might be a distraction while you're working." My words seemed to fluster Riley. She raised her voice, almost snapping. "It's fine. My friend's already on the way. Mom, please don't worry, just take it easy at home. I have another meeting coming up. I've got to go now." Before I could respond, she hung up. I stared at my phone, listening to the empty silence on the other end, and let out a quiet sigh. Riley had been so busy lately, she had even lost weight. Feeling sorry for her and Jack, I went into the kitchen to make them a nice meal, something warm to comfort them after their long day. By the time dinner was ready, the house was spotless. With nothing left to do, I finally sat down on the couch and pulled out my phone for a little break. At my age, I had grown fond of watching short videos online to pass the time. I scrolled through a few, none of them particularly interesting. Just as I was about to exit the app, my finger accidentally tapped on the nearby section. And there, on the very first thumbnail, I recognized her instantly. Even from just a glance at the back of her figure, I knew. It was my daughter, Riley. The video had been posted just half an hour ago. I clicked on it without hesitation. The setting was a private dining room in a hotel. Riley stood at the table, Jack holding Annie's hand beside her. All 3 of them were smiling. As Riley turned her head slightly, the camera panned to the side. And that's when I saw him. If I had to name the person I hated most in this life, there would be no doubt. It was him. We had fallen in love when we were young. I thought we would spend a lifetime together in happiness. Then in the 10th year of our marriage his first love's husband died in a tragic car accident, leaving behind a grieving widow and 2 young children. At first Charles helped them in secret, slipping money their way behind my back. When I found out, we had a terrible fight. His face turned red with fury as he called me heartless. And then not long after he stood before me holding his first love's 2 children in his arms, divorce papers in hand. David and Susan are too young, he said. They need a father. So he was leaving me. To be with her. To be a father to their children. Our daughter, Riley, had clung to his leg that day, sobbing uncontrollably, pleading for him to stay. But Charles never hesitated. He turned his back on us and walked away without a second thought. I didn't beg. I took the divorce settlement, more than half of what he owned, and left with Riley. I changed her last name to mine, Cullen. For fear that a stepfather might mistreat her, I never remarried. Instead, I devoted myself to raising her, watching her grow, putting her through college, seeing her fall in love, get married, and have little Annie. Through it all, Charles never once appeared in our lives. From what little I heard, he and his first love never had more children. Instead, he poured everything into raising her son and daughter as his own. Riley used to tell me she hated Charles just like I did. I had believed her. I thought that, having been old enough to remember the pain of our divorce, she would keep her distance from them, would see them for the poison they were. But now, not only had they been in contact behind my back, but I was watching them stand together in this video. Talking. Smiling. Not a trace of resentment in Riley's eyes. And then she started the song. Happy birthday to you. Jack clapped along, Annie joining in, her tiny hands keeping rhythm. That pair of children Charles had chosen over us, David and Susan, stood beside them singing as well. And at the very center of it all, surrounded by them like a queen at court, was her, Catherine, Charles's first love. She was still radiant, dressed in an elegant gown, a vision of effortless grace. She was pampered, cherished, and celebrated, still living like a princess. I had almost forgotten. She and I were born on the same day. But the cruelest part of all, the daughter I had given everything to, the daughter I had sacrificed my life for, stepped forward after the song, wrapped her arms around Catherine, and whispered with a soft, affectionate smile, Happy birthday, Mom. My phone slipped from my hand and crashed onto the floor, but the video kept playing on loop. My chest tightened with a dull ache, not just from pain but disbelief. I wanted to find an explanation, something to make this make sense. Riley, my Riley, the daughter who had clung to me since childhood, who had witnessed her father's cruelty firsthand. She had seen how Catherine played the part of the innocent victim, whispering I'm sorry while stepping into my home and tearing my family apart. So how could she possibly call that woman? I sat frozen on the couch, unable to process it, until the sharp, acrid scent of something burning filled my nose. I had left it simmering on the stove. I rushed into the kitchen and turned off the heat, my mind still clouded. In my distraction, I reached for the pot without thinking. The scorching metal seared my fingers, leaving a bright red burn across my skin. I was about to run my hand under cold water when the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, a delivery driver stood there holding a cake. A cake I had ordered myself. A small one. Getting older makes you sentimental. After Riley's call, I had placed an order online. Just a little cake, something to mark the day. If no one else was going to celebrate with me, I could still celebrate on my own. I set the cake on the coffee table and placed a few candles on top. Pressing my hands together, I closed my eyes and made a wish. I had already decided on my wish earlier. I wished for my Riley to live a life of happiness and ease. For Jack to love her wholeheartedly. For my precious Annie to grow up healthy and bright. That was the wish I had planned to make. But now, the moment I shut my eyes, all I could see was Riley lying to me, telling me she had to work late while she, Jack, and Annie celebrated Catherine's birthday instead. That video flashed in my mind. Catherine surrounded by them, basking in their love, the warmth of a real family. Unlike me. Alone. Sitting in a silent house like a fool. Like a joke. My own flesh and blood, someone I had carried, loved, and sacrificed everything for, had become the knife that cut me the deepest. It hurt too much. Tears spilled down my cheeks before I could stop them. Wiping them away, I made a new wish. I wish that in whatever time I have left, I can live for myself. To be happy. Truly happy. For so many years, Every wish had been for Riley, for her family. Never once for me. And now looking back, it hadn't been worth it. I took a bite of the cake. It was too sweet. Sickeningly rich. I forced down another bite before pushing it aside. I checked the time. It was past 11. On any other night I would have finished tidying the house, tucked Annie into bed and gone to sleep myself. But tonight I couldn't sleep. The front door creaked open. Riley tiptoed inside, but the moment she stepped past the entryway she spotted me sitting in the living room. She froze, her expression flickering with panic. Jack and Annie trailed behind her, still chatting about the evening's banquet, until they saw me. Then silence. Annie, ever the little actress, pretended like nothing had happened. She blinked her big, innocent eyes and stretched out her arms toward me. "Grandma, I missed you. Hug me." She ran up to me, expecting the same warm embrace I had always given her. But this time I didn't lift her into my arms. From the moment she was born, I had loved her as I once loved Riley, pouring my heart and soul into raising her. Jack had no parents and both he and Riley worked demanding jobs. Life in this city was expensive. So I had taken care of Annie, giving Riley and Jack the freedom to focus on their careers without worry. Yet even this little girl, like her mother, had betrayed me. I looked up and saw Riley approaching, her face composed as if nothing had happened. She even feigned exhaustion, rolling her shoulders dramatically. "Work was brutal today," she said, "but don't worry, Mom. We'll celebrate your birthday properly tomorrow." Then her gaze landed on the tiny cake sitting on the coffee table. She paused. "Mom, did you buy this for yourself?" Maybe it was because the cake was so small. Or maybe it was because the one they had for Catherine had been so much bigger. The guilt in her eyes deepened. There was no point in playing this game any longer. So I asked her directly, "Riley, where did you go today?" She stiffened, her gaze searching mine, scrambling for an answer. But in the end she chose to play dumb. "What are you talking about, Mom?" "I was at work, of course." She glanced at Jack and Annie for support. Jack nodded immediately. "Yeah, Mom. Work was crazy today. I've been on my feet all day, my back's killing me." Annie, eager to copy her father, shook her head so hard it was a wonder she didn't get dizzy. "Grandma, we didn't eat cake today." "We didn't." Her tiny voice wavered. Children were terrible liars. The more they talked, the easier it was to catch them. Riley barely had time to reach out and cover Annie's mouth. But it was too late. She could only force an awkward smile and try again. "Mom, don't misunderstand. Annie got restless at my office, so I bought her a little cake to keep her occupied." The lie was pathetic. The disappointment in my chest settled like a heavy stone. Without a word, I pulled out my phone, found the video and tossed it onto the table in front of her. She froze. Her lips parted as if searching for an excuse, but no words came. Then with a sigh she sank onto the couch beside me, all pretense crumbling. There was a defiant edge in her voice when she finally spoke. "Mom, it's been so many years. I know you hate Dad, but he's still my father. For your sake, I've barely seen him all these years. Haven't I done enough? You're not young anymore. Why can't you let this go? And even if you can't, why drag me into it? Every year on your birthday, have I ever not been here for you? Catherine's birthday is on the same day as yours. She never says it out loud, but she wishes our family could be whole again. So I thought, what's the difference? We all live together, so why not celebrate hers first and yours tomorrow? Mom, you're getting old. Stop being so childish. Jack and I work hard every day and honestly, it's easier for me when I spend time with Dad. But look at you acting like this. Can't you think about me for once?" Her complaints hit like ice against my already frozen heart. I looked at her carefully. "So, you're saying I've been stopping you from reconnecting with your father?" She looked away, saying nothing. I studied her face. She didn't resemble Charles at all. She had inherited my features instead. And perhaps that was why, after the divorce, Charles had poured all his fatherly love into Catherine's children, especially Susan. The first time I met her, she was 6 years old. Even then, she looked just like Catherine. And because of that, Charles adored her. Back then, Riley had sobbed in my arms, heartbroken and confused. "Mom, why doesn't Dad want me? Why does he want to be someone else's father? Doesn't he love me anymore?" I had held her, her little body trembling with grief, and I had thought, what a cruel thing for my child to have such a heartless father. But looking at her now, listening to the words coming out of her mouth, I realized The joke was on me. Riley didn't seem to notice the shift in my tone. Instead, she clung to my arm and whined like she always did. Mom, that's not what I meant. But think about it, Dad's old now. No matter what happened in the past, I still carry his blood in my veins. Isn't it time to let go of the resentment? And Catherine, she's actually a really nice person. Back then, she took Dad away because she was worried about her siblings growing up without a father. But she apologized to me, Mom. She even buys me gifts and treats me like her own daughter. So why keep holding on to something that happened so long ago? You're old now too, why not just move on? I stared at her, unable to suppress the bitter laugh that bubbled up in my throat. Charles, the father who had abandoned her without a second thought. She had spent countless nights crying in my arms, asking why he didn't want her. And Catherine, the woman who had destroyed our family, just because she bought a few gifts Riley had so easily forgiven her? I yanked my arm away. So, Riley, in your eyes, I'm just being unreasonable for not forgiving Charles and Catherine? Riley nodded, her expression matter of fact. Well, yeah. I was just a kid back then. Any anger I had has long faded. When I close my eyes now, all I remember are the happy times. How good Dad was to me when I was little. Mom, I want us to be a family again. Can't you see that? Catherine is actually really nice. Maybe the two of you could even be like sisters. Before she could finish, my hand struck her across the face. She let out a sharp cry, stumbling back as she clutched her cheek. Then she glared at me, her voice rising in fury. Mom, what the hell is wrong with you? Why would you hit me? No wonder Dad preferred Catherine. She's gentle and sweet, not some bitter old woman who can't let go. Tears welled up in her eyes, and before I could say another word, she turned and ran into her room, sobbing. Jack and Annie rushed after her, their voices hurried with concern. The door wasn't fully closed, and I could still hear their muffled whispers from inside. She's getting senile. Hanging on to some ancient grudge forever. No wonder she got dumped. What a cranky old hag. And more. Words spoken by the daughter I had loved for half my life. At that moment, something inside me finally broke. I stood up, went to my room, and began packing my things. For years, Riley and Jack had worked hard, but with housing prices so high, they were still paying off their mortgage. I had felt sorry for them, so every month I helped cover their expenses. Not just their mortgage, but also utilities, groceries, even Annie's art lessons. I paid for it all. But now that I was leaving, I wouldn't be giving them another cent. Whether they could afford their home without my support, that was no longer my concern. What Riley didn't know was that I had another property, one I had never told anyone about. I had bought it long ago just in case. I had been wary of Jack, afraid that one day he might betray Riley the way Charles had betrayed me. So I kept the house in my name, planning to leave it to Riley after I was gone. But now that was unnecessary. That house would be my refuge. With my remaining savings, I could live comfortably on my own. When I stepped out of my room, Riley was still crying. The small cake on the coffee table sat untouched, the candles never lit. Everything looked so pitiful. So I grabbed my suitcase and without hesitation, I walked out the door. By the time I settled in, it was already 3 a.m. I took a shower and lay down in bed. When I checked my phone, there wasn't a single missed call. Not one unread message. She was my daughter, the child I had raised for over 20 years. And yet, nothing. The thought made my heart ache. But maybe pain was a good thing. It would stop me from second-guessing myself, from foolishly convincing myself to turn back. I canceled my usual morning alarm. Then I turned off the lights, pulled the blanket over me, and pushed all unnecessary thoughts from my mind. So I didn't sleep well. My dreams kept pulling me back to the past, to the years when Riley and I had only each other. Back when Charles was determined to divorce me. Even though I walked away with most of his wealth, Riley was still too young. The betrayal had shattered her little world. She was so traumatized that she couldn't even go to school for a while. I had no choice but to quit my job and stay home with her. She was restless at night, waking up screaming from nightmares, crying out for her father, for me, begging us not to leave her. So I would hold her close, humming the lullaby I used to sing when she was little, sitting by her side for the entire night. By morning, her breathing would be steady, her face peaceful. And my back sore, my arms numb from holding her, would struggle to move. Back then, Riley would notice my discomfort. She would take my hand in her tiny fingers and start massaging my arm, whispering, "Mommy, I'll make it better. I'll make the pain go away." She was such a sweet child. I let out a long breath and opened my eyes, picking up my phone to check the time. Even though I had cancelled my alarm, years of habit woke me up at the usual hour. On any other morning, I would have gone straight to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Then I'd wake Annie, who always refused to get up right away, preferring to roll around in bed while I coaxed and carried her. I'd help her wash up, braid her hair into neat little pigtails and sit her down for breakfast. Once she was fed, I'd take her to preschool. By the time I got back home, Riley and Jack would have already eaten and left for work. Then I would start cleaning up, washing the dishes, tidying the house. My entire day revolved around them. I never had a moment to myself. But now I got up and only needed to make breakfast for myself. After eating, I took a walk around the neighborhood. A slow, peaceful stroll. A bit of jogging. A comfortable, unhurried life. But before I even finished my walk, Riley's calls started coming in. I ignored the first one. Then the second. Then the third. By the fifth call, my finger accidentally grazed the screen, connecting the call. I didn't put her on speaker, but Riley's voice was so loud it didn't matter. "Mom, where the hell did you go all night? You're not a teenager. Who just runs away like that? And Annie, do you even care that she was almost late for school? You didn't make breakfast. Do you expect us to go to work on empty stomachs? Do you have any idea how important my meeting is today? I can't afford to be late." Every word was an accusation. As if taking care of them had always been my responsibility. I didn't say a word. But Riley wasn't finished. "All I asked was for you to help out a little. Watch Annie cook some meals, clean the house. You're living with us for free, Mom. While Jack and I work ourselves to exhaustion, you get to enjoy an easy life at home. And now you're just going to disappear? Do you have any idea how selfish you're being?" Selfish. I let out a quiet laugh. This was my daughter. The one I had sacrificed my whole life for. And she couldn't even see it. She had never seen it. Maybe yesterday I would have still felt a pang of sorrow. Maybe I would have still held on to some lingering attachment after all these years of depending on each other. But now I only felt disappointment. "Riley," I said, my voice calm, "I may have lived in your home, but the mortgage payments, the groceries, the bills, they all came from my money. I took care of your home, your child, your entire life. And if you think that's me enjoying an easy life, then from now on, you can handle it all yourself. As for me, since you no longer want me as your mother, I no longer need you as my daughter." And with that I ended the call. I didn't give her a chance to respond. But the conversation had still left a sour taste in my mouth. So I went home and changed into something nice. I decided to go shopping. For years I had spent all my time and money on Riley and her family. I barely went to the mall. I barely bought anything for myself. But now that burden was gone. And my savings were more than enough for me to live well. So why not? Why not buy some nice clothes, some beautiful accessories? Why not become a stylish, carefree little old lady? That didn't sound bad at all. I hadn't expected that on the one day I finally treated myself to a carefree shopping trip, I would run into him. He was walking side by side with Catherine, the two of them stepping into a clothing store, right into my path. Charles looked uneasy the moment he saw me, his gaze flickering away. Catherine, on the other hand, smiled broadly, her expression smug as she strutted toward me, just as insufferable as ever. "Oh, Laura. Fancy running into you here. Shopping for clothes too." Her voice was loud, deliberately drawing attention. She let her eyes roam over me, up and down, before dramatically shaking her head with a theatrical sigh. "Goodness, you're always busy taking care of the house and the kids. Even if you buy something nice, when will you have time to wear it?" Then she leaned in slightly, her voice dropping into a faux whisper, but loud enough for others to hear. "Or, did you finally set your sights on some old man and want to dress up a little?" A few nearby shoppers turned their heads, drawn in by the obvious provocation. People loved gossip. But if Catherine thought she could humiliate me in public, she was in for a surprise. I smiled, watching as more eyes turned toward us, then let out a dramatic gasp. "Oh, but how could I ever compare to you, Catherine? The way you threw yourself into my husband's arms right after your own died. Bringing along your 2 kids, of course. With talent like that, I could never hope to compete." The words had their desired effect. The store fell into a stunned silence as realization dawned. Then a woman near the entrance gasped, "Oh, so she's an old homewrecker." Catherine's face flushed an angry red. Charles stepped forward immediately, his jaw clenched. "Laura, that's enough. I turned, gesturing toward him as I addressed the crowd. Everyone, meet the man who left his own daughter behind because someone else's kids needed a father more. He abandoned his own child without looking back, but was more than happy to play daddy to someone else's. And guess what? Those kids still only call him uncle. That last part hit deep. It was a wound Charles had never been able to heal. Even after all these years, even after raising Catherine's children like his own, they had never acknowledged him as their father. Now being called out in public, he could do nothing but stand there, his face dark with anger, fists clenched at his sides. The laughter around us grew. Someone muttered, "What a fool." Another snickered, "Talk about being a doormat." Catherine's fury was visible in every tense muscle of her face. But instead of arguing, she grabbed Charles's arm, yanking him toward the exit. And just then, as if fate had a twisted sense of humor, Riley appeared. She was coming off work, walking through the mall when she spotted Catherine. "Catherine, what's wrong?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. The frustration and anger that had consumed Catherine just moments ago instantly melted away as she straightened her posture, shifting into a pitiful stance. Then she turned to me with a sigh. "Oh, it's nothing. Your mother's still upset with me, that's all. I suppose I shouldn't have asked you to celebrate my birthday with me." Her voice was soft, filled with just the right amount of sadness. Riley's eyes snapped to me, her lips pressing into a thin line. Still upset from our fight earlier, she didn't hesitate to take Catherine's hand, turning on me with an accusatory glare. "Mom, do you have to keep throwing a tantrum like this? Just look at Catherine, she's kind, gentle, and understanding. Meanwhile, you're always so bitter and angry. Do you really wonder why Dad chose her over you?" Her words were a dagger straight to my heart. I raised my hand and slapped her. "Hard," she gasped, stumbling back as her hand flew to her cheek, eyes wide with shock. "Mom, you hit me again." I stared at her. At the daughter I had loved more than life itself. And yet, looking at her now, I felt nothing but emptiness. It was a cold, detached realization. The final severing of the last thread that had kept me tethered to her. This girl, this woman, she was no longer my child. So I reached out and shoved her. Pushed her toward Catherine and Charles. "If you love them so much, then go ahead. Call them Mom and Dad. I have no interest in being your mother anymore." Riley let out a sharp laugh, looping her arm through Catherine's as if to spite me. "Fine. Who needs a mother like you anyway? Catherine is a better mom than you ever were. At least she knows how to let go of the past instead of wallowing in it like some bitter old hag." She turned to Charles and Catherine. "I'm coming home with you tonight. We're going to have a real family dinner, not sit around sulking over things that happened decades ago." As she spoke, she moved too quickly and something fell out of her pocket. A driver's license. The sound of it hitting the floor was soft, but instinct made me glance down. The ID had landed face up, the photo recent, the name clearly printed. Riley Spencer. I froze. Riley followed my gaze. Then, as if suddenly remembering what had happened, she hesitated. There was a flicker of guilt in her expression, but she quickly masked it, brushing a hand over her nose. "What? It's just a name. Isn't it normal for kids to take their father's surname? Dad doesn't have any other children carrying his name. I was just making things right. Do you really have to make a big deal out of this too?" Even though I hadn't said a word, her irritation grew, her voice laced with annoyance. But I barely heard her. I just stood there staring at the name. Once she had begged me to change her last name. "I don't want Dad anymore," she had sobbed, curled up in my arms. "It's just us now, Mommy. We're the only family we need. I want to have your last name so we can always be together." No. Now she was Riley Spencer. She had erased the last remaining tie between us. I lifted my hand and waved her off. My voice was calm, devoid of emotion. "Do whatever you want. Your name, your life. It has nothing to do with me anymore." Because I had finally made my decision. I was done being her mother. She had long become an adult now. If this was her choice, then let it be. I would not let anyone bothering me ever again. On the way home, I blocked Riley's number. Every contact. Every connection. Severed. Then I checked my savings, glanced at my recently deposited returns from my investment fund, and immediately booked a group tour online. For years I had poured everything into Riley. So many beautiful places in the world. I had never seen them. She used to promise me, "When I grow up, Mom. When I graduate, Mom. When I find a job, Mom. When I get married, Mom. When I have kids, Mom. When the kids grow up, Mom. I waited. Year after year, promise after promise. But that day never came. Good thing though. I didn't need to wait anymore. I saw mountains. I stood by the ocean. I breathed in fresh air without worrying about getting home in time to cook dinner. And I met Vanessa. She was in the same travel group as me. Like me, she had spent her whole life dedicated to her family. Her only wish had been to travel, to see the world with her husband and children. But they called her selfish. At your age, you should be home taking care of the grandkids, they scolded. What's a woman your age running around for? Have some shame. So, heartbroken, she took her savings, cut off all contact, and set out on a journey of her own. We hit it off instantly. Same regrets. Same disappointments. So we played. We laughed. And before parting ways, we exchanged numbers, promising to meet again for another trip. But happiness never comes without a little trouble. In our group there was a man, a year older than me. His wife had passed away years ago. His children were grown, married, and had kids of their own. Life was good, he said. But a house without a woman in it, it gets lonely. The moment he learned I was divorced, his eyes practically lit up. Laura, we should partner up. You don't have a husband, I don't have a wife. Why not? I'll hand over my savings to you. You won't have to do much. Just cook, clean, take care of me. Maybe help with the grandkids when my children get busy. It's an easy life. I ignored him. He didn't take the hint. When I got home, dragging my suitcase through the door, I barely had time to unpack before I saw him standing at my doorstep, with a huge bouquet of red roses. Laura, think about it, he started, flashing what he probably thought was a charming smile. We're both getting old. I'm still a handsome guy, you know. Walking around with me would make you look good. And come on, you've been alone for so many years. Aren't you lonely? I took a deep breath. 20 years ago, I would have grabbed a broom and beaten him out of my yard. But at my age, I was more worried about breaking my back than breaking his nose. So instead, I called the police. As they escorted him away, he whined the entire time. Laura, don't be so heartless. Don't you have feelings for me? I'm still in my 60s. That's young. Come on, just think about it. I had thought about it, and now I had enough. So I grabbed the trash bag sitting by my door and threw it right at him. Riley's voice cut through the air before I even noticed her approaching. Mom, what are you doing here? She hurried toward me, her gaze flicking from my face to the man still struggling in the grasp of the officers. Then, as if suddenly realizing something, she pointed at me in shock. You were actually trying to get yourself a new husband? A stepfather for me? What the hell are you thinking? Her eyes burned with anger, her accusations sharp. She turned and swung her purse at the man, hitting him repeatedly as she screamed for him to get lost. Are you out of your mind, Mom? You're at the age where any man interested in you is obviously after your money. And you actually fell for it like some clueless idiot. Once the old man was chased away, she turned back to me, her expression dark. Then she glanced over my shoulder at the house behind me. So this is what you've been up to? She scoffed. Ignoring my calls for months, renting out a place, living a carefree life? Her lips curled in displeasure as she continued. Must be nice. Running away from all responsibilities while I'm stuck at home. Working, raising a child, drowning in housework. You just disappeared, leaving me to deal with everything. And what do you do instead? Flirt with some random old man? Wow, what a great mother you are. Her voice was thick with mockery. I watched her, my gaze ice cold. Last time we met, I made myself clear. If you prefer Catherine so much, then go be her daughter. I'm done. I have no interest in being your mother anymore. And as for your house and your problems, none of it is my responsibility. Understand? She blinked, finally realizing that I was serious. That I wasn't just throwing a tantrum. I had made my choice. But she refused to accept it. What do you mean, not my mother? I came from your body. Whether you like it or not, I'm still your daughter. She crossed her arms and glared at me. Now stop being ridiculous and come home. The house is a mess, the bills are piling up. You were the one paying the mortgage. You were the one covering utilities. Jack and I don't make much and we have a kid to raise. We haven't saved a single dollar since you left. This is your fault. And just like that, my hand flew across her face. Get out. I was completely, utterly done. I turned and walked toward my house, unwilling to waste another second listening to her nonsense. Behind me, she stomped her foot in frustration. Mom, can you hear yourself? All I did was tell the truth and you hit me again? No wonder Dad didn't want you. My steps halted. Slowly I turned back around. She met my gaze, smugly raising an eyebrow, thinking she had won. Thinking I would finally give in. So I picked up the second trash bag I hadn't thrown out yet, and hurled it right at her head. Riley, I said calmly, Charles divorced me because he was blind and an idiot. But you're his flesh and blood, and he still threw you away for children who weren't even his. So tell me, between the two of us, who's really the joke? There was a flicker of something in her eyes. Maybe anger. Maybe shame. But I didn't care. I turned my back to her again, ready to walk away for good. Just as she opened her mouth to hurl more words at me, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, irritated, before answering. But the moment she heard the voice on the other end, she gasped. What? The house is on fire. Without another word, she spun around and ran. The woman who had come with her hesitated before chasing after her, shouting, Miss Spencer, are we still looking at houses today? Jack's parents had passed away long ago, so after he and Riley got married and had Annie, I moved in with them. I took care of their child, managed their household. For years, that neighborhood had been my home and I had made many friends there. Especially Zoe. Zoe was the community's unofficial news channel. If something happened, she was always the first to know, and she never kept it to herself. So, unsurprisingly, within half an hour of the fire at Riley's house, Zoe was video calling me. We had always gotten along well. Even after I moved away, she would check in from time to time, reminding me that if I ever needed help, I only had to ask. So I picked up. The moment the call connected, Zoe's grinning face filled the screen. She turned the camera, pointing it at Riley's burned-out apartment window. Laura, your ungrateful daughter finally got what was coming to her. She laughed, then launched into a full report on everything that had gone down these past few months. Apparently, after I left, Riley couldn't find me. Between that and the multiple slaps I had given her, she had been fuming. And, fueled by that resentment, she had gotten even closer to Catherine. Now, Catherine's two children weren't exactly what you'd call decent human beings. David was a good-for-nothing. Never liked school, never liked working, spent his days loafing around, doing nothing. Susan, no better. She wasn't interested in working either. Her goal in life was to find a rich man and marry up. So when Catherine saw that Riley had managed to buy a big house, even if it was still under mortgage, she figured that was good enough. And just like that, she dumped her two kids on Riley. Since we're all one family now, Catherine had said, they should spend more time together. And of course David and Susan had no shame. They started showing up at Riley's place every other day, empty-handed when they arrived, with an armful of food and alcohol when they left. David even started inviting his gang of low-life friends over for parties, turning the house into a disaster zone. Jack had put his foot down. He and Riley had fought over it. But David didn't give a damn. And then came tonight. David had snuck his friends over again. They got drunk. One of them passed out on the couch, cigarette still burning between his fingers. Right next to an open bottle of alcohol. A single careless movement. The cigarette dropped. The liquor spilled. And just like that, the whole house went up in flames. Jack had just come home from work when he saw thick black smoke billowing from the windows. David, the bastard, ran outside first. And when he saw Jack, did he show even an ounce of shame? No. He cursed him out. Blamed him for having a crappy house. Said it was Jack's fault that he had almost died. And, get this, demanded that Jack pay him compensation. Jack lost it. A full-blown fight broke out right there in the street. Neighbors came to break it up, but neither man would back down. Then Riley arrived. The moment she stepped into the chaos, Jack and David stopped fighting each other and turned on her instead. Together they ripped into her, throwing blame from all directions, cursing her out like she was the root of all evil. And once the screaming match ended, the house was burnt. Completely unlivable. With no other options, Riley tried going to Charles's place. Her dear, loving father, the one she had so proudly chosen over me. And what did Charles do? Told her there was no room and shut the door in her face. The entire neighborhood had gathered outside their homes, watching the mess unfold like it was primetime entertainment. And Zoe? Zoe had her camera pointed right at them, giving me a live broadcast of my daughter's downfall. I watched as Riley stood there, lost, helpless, the perfect picture of karma finally catching up. At the end of the call, Zoe let out a satisfied sigh and said, "Evil people always meet their match. Don't you dare feel sorry for her, Laura. A daughter like that isn't worth it." I nodded. There wasn't a single trace of pity in me. Not anymore. As I watched the chaos unfold on my screen, I didn't feel heartbreak. I didn't feel sorry for them. I only felt that life had never been more ironic. In the end, Riley won. She had fought tooth and nail, stubbornly clinging to her choice, dragging her family into Charles's home just to prove that she hadn't made a mistake. But she had no idea that this decision would ruin her. As for me, after that video call with Zoe, I stopped paying attention to Riley's life. I had better things to do. Recently I found a new hobby: pottery. There was something deeply soothing about shaping soft clay into delicate figures, molding it into something beautiful. I had been going to the workshop for several days in a row. And wouldn't you know it? Right next to the pottery studio was a hotel. The day I finished firing my latest piece, I stepped outside, hands still warm from the kiln, and walked right into the middle of another disaster. Right in front of the hotel entrance, Riley. And standing opposite her, looking disheveled, half-dressed, and entirely unashamed, and Susan. "Jack." Riley's voice was raw, shaking with disbelief. "We've been married for 7 years. I gave birth to your daughter. How could you do this to me?" She was shouting, her voice breaking, clutching Annie's tiny hand in a grip so tight that the child looked frightened. Susan didn't even bother fixing her clothes properly. She had never been one to care about appearances. Years of chasing after rich men had left her completely unbothered by shame. Even now, in front of the growing crowd, she smirked and leaned into Jack's arms, making herself comfortable. "Oh, Riley, come on. You've turned into a frumpy old housewife. No job, no social life. Just stuck at home wiping snot and cleaning up after a brat all day. How could Jack not get sick of you?" Then she tilted her head flirtatiously, batting her lashes at Jack. "Tell me, baby, would you rather be stuck with her or be with me?" Riley's body trembled. She looked at Jack, desperate, still searching for something. An explanation, a reason, a denial. But Jack didn't even flinch. "Dad," he scoffed. "Why are you making such a big deal out of this, Riley? You should have stayed home with the kid. What are you even doing here? What man doesn't cheat?" Then he sneered. "Your own father did it, didn't he? He left your mom and ran off with another woman. And you," he jabbed a finger at her, "forgave him. Hell, you even started calling that woman mom. Sis. So if you could accept it back then, why the hell can't you accept it now?" Riley's face went deathly pale. She shook her head over and over. Jack, how could you say that? How could you say that?" She lunged for him, trying to hit him, but Jack merely shoved her aside. He tightened his arms around Susan, looking down at Riley as if she were nothing but a pathetic joke. "Riley, let's not kid ourselves. Did you really think your father took you back because he loved you? Please. If I hadn't been making good money and bought that house, he wouldn't have given you a second glance. The only reason he accepted you again was because he wanted more money for David and Susan. And you," he let out a dry laugh, "you fell for it like an idiot. But hey, at least you did one thing right." He ran a hand down Susan's back. "Susan's a lot more fun than you. So let's cut the act. Let's get divorced. I don't want the kid, you take her. We'll split the money and go our separate ways. And since you were so supportive of your mother's fate, I'm sure you won't mind following in her footsteps. Right?" One blow after another, each word stabbing into Riley's chest like a knife. Her hands clenched into fists, her entire body trembling violently. Tears streamed down her face, her breathing ragged, on the verge of completely breaking apart. Meanwhile, Susan simply smirked. She casually flipped her hair before bending down to look at Annie. "Sweetheart," she cooed, "don't you think your mommy's overreacting? Grown-ups do this kind of thing all the time. She's making such a fuss over nothing." Riley's head snapped up, eyes wide with fury. "Don't touch my daughter." She lunged forward, yanking Annie away. But in her panic, her grip was too rough, too tight. Annie screamed. Tears welled in her little eyes as she fought against Riley, her tiny hands slapping at her arms. "You're a bad mommy. I don't want you." Riley froze. "Annie," she choked. "I'm your mother. I gave birth to you. I raised you. How can you say that? She lifted her hand, whether to grab her, to scold her, to discipline her. But before she could, Annie bit down on her wrist. Hard. Riley gasped in pain. And Annie ran straight into Susan's arms. Then she turned and glared at Riley, face scrunched up in anger. You're always mean to me. I don't want you. I want Susan to be my mommy. Silence. Everything stopped. Riley stood there, shaking, eyes glassy with shock. And then, her gaze met mine. For a single moment, time seemed to freeze. Her face twisted into something unreadable. Pain. Realization. Maybe, just maybe. For the first time she understood. The cruel, unforgiving irony of it all. She had become me. Everything she had done to me, every wound, every betrayal, had come back. And now she was the one being cast aside. Just like she had once cast me aside. After an entire day of gathering information, Zoe flooded my phone with dozens of messages. Most of them just confirmed what I had already seen firsthand. Ever since their house burned down, Riley, Jack, and Annie had been living at Charles's house. But the tension between Riley and Jack had been simmering for a long time. Without me there, they had no one to handle school drop-offs and pickups. In the end, Riley had quit her job to stay home with Annie full-time. Meanwhile, Susan had her sights set on Jack's income. One thing led to another, flirtation, temptation, until finally they fell into bed together. And Charles and Catherine? They knew. And they helped cover it up. Even Annie had walked in on them a few times. But a lollipop was enough to buy her silence. Riley lost everything. Jack abandoned her for Susan. Her home was gone. Charles and Catherine offered her nothing, not even a place to stay. But worst of all, Annie, her own daughter, cried and screamed to stay with Susan. She refused to go back to Riley. Riley had been completely, utterly discarded. At first she refused to accept reality. She had gone to Charles, but he avoided her like the plague. You're an adult now, he had said coolly. Figure it out yourself. She had gone to Catherine. The same woman she had once called Mom, with so much warmth. But this time, Catherine wouldn't even let her through the door. Her voice was cold, dismissive. I only recognize David and Susan as my children. You're nothing but an outsider. Finally, he understood. She had never been family. She had only ever been a pawn. She wandered the streets, lost and broken, until she remembered. There was still one place left to go. Her mother's home. That night, Riley stood outside my door, exhausted and hesitant. Maybe she had finally realized how cruel she had been. She had lied to me, betrayed me, taken my love for granted, even stood before me and mocked me. But now, she had nothing. Her hands trembled as she pressed the doorbell. When I finally opened the door, there was no surprise on my face. No anger. Only calm. Riley's lips parted, but no words came out. Her throat was dry, and before she could stop them, tears spilled down her cheeks. Mom, I was wrong. I didn't answer right away. I simply looked at her. What was I supposed to feel? Bitterness? Sadness? Satisfaction? Or nothing at all? Yet in my mind unbidden memories surfaced. Of a much younger Riley, of the years when we only had each other. I let the silence stretch between us. Then at last I spoke. Wrong about what? Her breath hitched and she bit her lip, trying to hold back her sobs. I shouldn't have lied to you. I shouldn't have stood by their side. I shouldn't have hurt you. I shouldn't have just assumed you would always forgive me. I should never have ignored everything you've done for me. She went on, confessing her every mistake, apologizing over and over, as if she could rewrite the past through sheer regret. I let her speak. I didn't interrupt. And when she finally fell silent, I said nothing. I simply stepped aside, leaving space for her to enter. Come in. From that night on, Riley never tried to force my forgiveness. She knew she had lost that right. The only thing she could do now was prove herself. She moved in quietly, without protest, without complaints. She didn't demand that I love her like before. Instead, she started learning. She learned how to cook, how to clean, how to listen, how to care for me, just as I had once cared for her. She no longer expected me to welcome her with open arms. She simply stayed. And as the days passed, so did the walls I had built. I still acted cold. I still kept my distance. But the resentment I once held, it wasn't as strong as before. One morning after returning from a walk, I passed by a bakery. On a whim, I bought a box of Riley's favorite pastries. I didn't say anything when I placed them on the table. Just left them there. But when she saw them, her hands trembled and fresh tears welled in her eyes. Maybe I hadn't truly forgiven her. Maybe I never would. But at least, I was willing to give her a chance. Years later, Riley had rebuilt her life. She had found stability in her work, regained her independence, and eventually she moved into a small apartment of her own. Not too far. She still visited me regularly. She brought fresh flowers, handmade treats, walked with me in the evenings. For the first time, our relationship was no longer one-sided. No longer just me giving and her taking. We had found a balance. That day she arrived with a tray of homemade cupcakes. As she placed them on the table, I took a bite of one and nodded slightly. Not bad. Across from me, Riley's lips curled into a soft, genuine smile. He knew. We could never go back to what we were. But at least, we still had a future ahead.